So let's remember where we left Moses and the Israelites last time. Well, after 9 chances, that's 9 chances to do the right thing, silly and rather grumpy old Pharaoh still hadn't let the Israelites go. So God brought the 10th plague on Egypt, and the eldest son in every household that did not follow God died, including Pharaoh's own son. But in the houses that were marked out by the blood of the Lamb, everyone was safe, those who trusted God. So Pharaoh called Moses. "Go," he said, "just go. Leave Egypt, take all your people, all your possessions, all your animals, and just get out of Egypt." So finally, the Israelites were free, and the Egyptians gave them some extra clothing for their journey, gold and silver for their journey, and off they went. They began the long journey back to Israel, the special land that God had given them. But before we talk about that journey, let's just remember Joseph. Now, most of you will remember Joseph. He's the one who brought the Israelites to Egypt in the first place to save them from the famine in Israel. Now, Joseph, of course, had died hundreds of years before, but Joseph had always known that eventually the Israelites would return to Israel. So he had asked them to take his bones with them back to Israel. So when they went, the Israelites took the bones of Joseph with them as well. Well, it was a long journey across the desert, but God guided them. During the daytime, God appeared as a pillar of cloud in front of them to guide them, and they followed the pillar of cloud across the desert. But during the night time, or when it got dark, and the pillar of cloud, they couldn't see it anymore, God appeared as a pillar of fire, and they followed the pillar of fire across the desert, wherever it led them. And it was a very long journey because they had to go the long way round to avoid some baddies who were over here. They were called the Philistines, and they would have tried to kill the Israelites, but God kept them safe by leading them round a different way. Eventually, God, as a pillar of cloud, led them to the Red Sea. God told them where to camp. Goodness, what a long journey it had been. I'm sure they were ready for a rest and something to eat. Now, meanwhile, in Pharaoh's palace, Pharaoh had a meeting with his officials. Call the officials! Call the officials! Here we are, Pharaoh, Your Majesty. Now, we already know that Pharaoh was very silly indeed, but you know what he did next? Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds again. "What have we done?" they said to each other. "We've let the Israelites go. We haven't got any slaves anymore." Well, silly Pharaoh. He called for his chariot and his horse, and he called for his army. And they set off to chase the Israelites and bring them back to Egypt. I did tell you last week that Pharaoh would do something even sillier this week. As Pharaoh and his army approached the Israelites looked up and saw them. Oh no, the Israelites were terrified. The Egyptians are coming, the Egyptians are coming. Ah! Then they got cross with Moses. We would have been better off being slaves in Egypt than being killed by Pharaoh's army in the desert, they said. Don't be afraid, said Moses. God will save us. And Moses prayed to God. God told Moses to raise his staff and stretch his hand out over the Red Sea, and Moses did. Then the pillar of cloud moved between the Israelites and the Egyptians, and over the Israelites it was light, but over the Egyptians the pillar of cloud caused it to be dark. So neither could go near one another that night. And then God caused an east wind to blow over the Red Sea. And the wind was so strong that the Red Sea parted and there was dry land. There was dry land between two great walls of water, and Moses led the Israelites through the Red Sea to the other side. But silly, silly Pharaoh. Pharaoh and his army chased the Israelites. We'll get them. But God wasn't having any of it. He caused the wheels of the chariots to get stuck and not move. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah. And when the Egyptians saw this, they said, let's get away from the Israelites. Their God is fighting for them. Run away, run away. Run away, run away, run away. But God said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the waters. And Moses did as God told him, and the waters swept over Pharaoh and the Egyptians. And not one of them survived. And then the Israelites knew that they could trust God and they could also trust Moses, and the Egyptians could never, ever hurt them again. And the Israelites had a party on the other side of the Red Sea with food and drink and singing and dancing, and Miriam, Moses' sister, sang a special song praising God for saving them. So what can we learn from this week's Bible story? Well, God does keep his promises. God did save the Israelites. It's very foolish indeed to think that you can work against God. Pharaoh and the Egyptians tried, and look what happened to them. So what should we do? We should trust God and we should follow his instructions. Now we're going to do our craft to help us to remember the story and to tell it to other people.